Welcome back. So in last video we discussed about LangChain, and we went through examples and the code to understand the concepts, basic concepts on LangChain. Now let's move on to our next component, which is Gradio. So first question again, why Gradio? So there are four main reasons that I see. Number one is it's a framework that allows you to build a web interface very fast. I mean, you'll see this is insane how in single line of code you can have a pretty good looking UI. Secondly, it is a pure Python. So basically, people working in data domain or AI domain, mostly data scientists and LLM engineers, they may not have front end skills to develop in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, which is a totally different ballgame. So this type of frameworks provide them opportunity to experiment and build UI that can be shared with users, and feedback can be taken very fast without relying on front end technical people or developers. Third reason is share and iterate quickly, which is again goes back to feedback and sharing with users. Now this is something is very peculiar about Gradio, how it is shared. I will show an example of it. I have never seen such functions in any other frameworks. Like I worked on Streamlit and Shiny as well. So without deploying your application on the web, you can share a public link with the users through which they can experiment and give feedback to you, and then you can iterate through very quickly and change, right? Last one is this is again a very interesting feature which has been built, I think, recently in Gradio latest release, which allows you to expose your UI. So let's say you have built a very complicated UI with n number of functions, n number of fields in there, right? And then you want to take it into production, and the customer you're working for or your own company, they use a different front end framework, something like let's say React or Next.js or something. So state of the art of front end frameworks. So now instead of Gradio UI, you want to have a UI which relies on your front end framework of choice, but you do not want to lose all the functionality you have developed. So in Gradio, what they have done is you build using Gradio. You have your UI rendered as a Gradio component initially, and then when you think that you're ready to move into production, you can literally use this functionality which has already been built as an API, and your front end UI which you build on different framework, they can literally call as a HTTP AI. So this is a very cool feature. Uh, we may not be touching this one because it's a pretty advanced feature. So maybe who knows, in future video we might do it. So without any delay, let's see and explore Gradio. So let's search for Gradio straight away. The first link again, this is the website, and here as you can see their tagline is build and share delightful machine learning apps, the fastest way to demo your application. So this is their homepage, and here at the bottom you can see some of the examples which you have given. And I was mentioning that you in a single line you can build a, so this is an interface, right? So if I put my name here and submit, then it says hello, right? So simple, but you see using a single line of this is the line that creates this UI, right? So it's as simple as that. Then they have given, so this is one of the examples. Another, you can check this is a simple app of searching for Airbnb. You give the price range and you select where you want the area and update. So you can display the map as one of the UI element. You can see the checkbox, buttons, then obviously chatbot. So here you can, so this is my one of my previous threads. So I say hello. So it is a kind of it's not actually connecting with any LLMs, but it's just showing the interface. It's a pretty cool. This is again a single line of code can create this. Another one they are showing is the stable diffusion image generators. So it basically behind the scene connects with a stable diffusion model and it generates. So here it's demonstrating their image component, which can be, so you can build anything you like, right? So there's a lot of components are available, and we'll be looking at some of them. So let's jump into the code and try to build something. So let's first, you know the drill, right? So let's go to our project folder. So this is the folder I created for when we were doing LangChain intro, right? So let's use the same folder for Gradio as well. So first thing, if this folder was suppose created just now and didn't exist, then we have to do pyenv, right? Versions, and then switch using pyenv local. And then if there was no when created, no virtual environment, then we'll create, right, python when -m dot when as a virtual environment, and then we will activate it. But in this case already, since we have, so I'm just going to activate it. So let me clear this one, and so source dot when scripts activate. So now when is activated. Okay, so once we are here, let's we can start VS Code. Okay, so I've already started, so I'll just switch to VS Code. Here we are. So this is the directory, this is our directory. Okay, so the first thing, let's check the environment is already selected. So these are some of the files we created in the last video when we're doing LangChain. Let's continue in the same folder. So what the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a file called gr, which stands for Gradio concepts dot py. Okay, all right. So first thing, let's start with a simple function. I'm going to call def shout, and it's going to take a string as input, going to return a string as output, and it's very simple. Is what it's going to do is it's going to just capitalize the argument and return it, right? That's it. So this is my function, and let's call it so shout. I say hello. Okay, let's run it using our interactive shell and see what happens. Probably I need to print it, right? Print. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, so it's working. So again, it's a very simple function. There is a one text as input, one text as output. Now instead of like we hard coded here, right, text, what if I want to create a user interface where user can provide any text he wants and click a button and then sees the output being produced as capitalized text in some other part of the UI. So that's the idea. So this is where we use Gradio. So, but before we can use Gradio, obviously we have to install it. So let's go to our terminal, and then we should pip install Gradio. Okay. Typo. All right. Now again, it was very fast. So because I have already have it, so it's saying requirement satisfied. But this is how you install it. And let's move back here, and then first thing we import, right? Import Gradio as gr. So as a convention, this is what is used as gr as Gradio. Now I'm going to cut and paste some codes to save time. So build the interface. Let's say build the UI. This is what I want to do. And here it is. What I'm doing, I'm creating an object from Gradio library called interface, and this interface has three arguments. One is inputs. So basically, this is where the user provide their inputs, and input will be text box, and output will be produced as a text box. So input is text, output is text. So if you look at closely, this input and output matches with what our function is. So whole concept of Gradio is that you build a UI by wrapping a Gradio component around a function. As simple as that. So this is our function, which has input one text. Here is input one text box, output text, output is a text box. And then we tell the interface, okay, what function we want to use. So this is the function, right? And then we have created, so we have to start the app. So demo dot launch. We save it. Now we cannot run it in interactive shell because a web server will be running. So basically this demo.launch actually starts a web server and it serves our UI as a web page. So let's go back to our terminal quickly, and I'm going to have a different session where I'm going to do this. Okay, let's start here itself. If we need anything else, we'll create later on. Okay, so simply ls you do. So this is our file. Yeah, so let's do python gr to start. Okay, so now you can see it has started a web server, this location. So let's copy it and let's go back to our browser. Just going to paste this guy, or maybe I'll create a new tab. So create a new tab. See, so this is the output of our app. Input and output, these are the labels that we have given. You see, input, output. Well, let me show it side by side. That will be better, I guess. Okay, so this is our app, right? Exactly built using this single line of code. And you might have noticed this is a responsive app, so its layout changes depending upon the device you're using. So if you're in tablet, it's going to show tablet, or mobile is going to show like this. And if you are on desktop, it's going to be using the full width. Okay, so let's try this. So input, try the same thing, hello, and say submit and see. Okay, so same thing which we our function is doing, we just tested. Now one thing is, this is the flag. By default, this function, this Gradio component creates a flag button. So this is used for basically if you're doing a machine learning experimentation and you're checking the output and you want to flag some output where the prediction was not right. So for that it is used. So we can switch it off because we do not need it. So there is a flagging mode argument, and I think it says never. Okay, never, and save it. But did not change. It did not change anything. So if I want to, if the app is running and if I'm changing the code here, Gradio code, then if I want that modify code to take effect, then I have to go and close this server and then restart it, right? But obviously if you are making a complex UI, then this workflow is not very convenient, right? So every time you have to close the server, right? So what Gradio provides something called hot reload. So what hot reload is, as soon as you change your code and save it, immediately it's going to refresh your browser and new code, new UI will be shown to you, right? So you do not have to restart the server every time. So the way to do is very simple. Instead of Python, what you do, Gradio gr, that's it. That's the only change. So Python is replaced by Gradio. Okay, now you see it's saying that watching, that means it's monitoring our file. As soon as it finds that okay, as it changes, then it's going to refresh our page. So let's go back and let's go back here. Okay, so let's try it again. So I'm going to comment it and save. Okay, let me uncomment it and save. Nothing happens. Why? Okay, let me change something else. Input text. Why it's not doing it? All right. Okay. Text. Yeah. Okay. So now if I comment it out and save it, this button reappears. So I had to just refresh it once. Sometimes it works without refreshing, but if refreshed once after starting in hot reload mode, if you refresh once, then from there onwards it's going to refresh automatically. Like I can input text. If I remove it, right, you can see that immediately it refreshes, right? So that's the simplest of app, and it explains the major part of Gradio. So you just wrap around a UI around a function, and your input and output should logically match with your function, and then rest of the things will be taken care of by Gradio. So at this point of time, I want to show like what exactly behind the scene Gradio is doing, right? So if you go to docs and then interface, and then if you go in the section called components and introduction, now here they have provided a very nice overall flow, like what happens and how Gradio works. So first part is obviously input components, which are the inputs to our interface, like text box, number, image, drop down, radio buttons, whatever, all the components. And then what happens is Gradio does something called pre-processing. So it takes from these components, it takes their content. So from text box is going to extract the text, from number is going to extract the number, from image is going to extract some kind of 2D array or something, numpy array or something, right? So relevant data will be extracted during pre-processing. Then it will be converted into Python objects. So string, text, string, number, int, image, numpy array. And then your function will be called, which is the function we specified in our interface, right? So in our case is a shout function. And once this function executes, and then this function will be called executes, and obviously it's going to return Python object. And then Gradio does a post processing, which is converting these Python objects into objects so that it can bind to your UI. So we are in output component here, we are displaying a number and a gallery. Gallery means some kind of image gallery. So multiple images are displayed. So it gets a list and then it passes to gallery. And now gallery knows how to display it, all the images. So this number component knows how to display the a number Python float data type. Okay. Now there are various components. We are talking about the components we just used in our case. We just use text box and buttons, right? So if in the same page where we are looking at it in component, you can see the all the component that Gradio provides. There are n number of them. Probably you get everything in modern UI that you need, right? So for example, if you go to gallery, and if you go down, they have given the examples as well, like how to use it. So here is the code example. Okay. For example, let's look at text box slider. Yeah. So here is the number. Here is the slider. I change it and the changes. So for this is the place where you should come if you are building a UI, and if you have such certain idea that this kind of interface I want to build, you should come here and find and check the component, and there is it's a pretty good documentation. So you can come and you can check the documentation, like how to use it. It's not very hard to do. Okay, so this is the place. Now since we are here, I want to mention that when you're starting Gradio, the first thing, probably best place to start is go to this quick start guide. So if you have never used it before, then go through this section marked in yellow first. So this is basically what we did. So it's going to explain in detail. Okay, so how Gradio works and what are the classes and how you should use it. So this was the first very basic Gradio concept which you saw, and how it works. Now next we are going to modify a bit. Like right now you can see that when you create this interface, okay, then our application is basically the layout we cannot control. It's controlled totally by the interface object. Okay, so I cannot basically, if I want to put this button somewhere else, or clear button somewhere else, and if instead of side by side, if I want to put these two one below the other, I can't do that. So interface function is a very high level function where most of the heavy lifting is done by interface object, and so I do not need to worry about if I'm creating a very simple interface. But if I want more flexibility, more control, the way I want to build a UI, okay, then in that case this interface object will not work. So we have to use something called blocks that we are going to see next. Using that, you have the full control, how you want to lay out your elements and what functions should be called, what colors your object should be, everything. So this is what we are going to do next. So here is our the interface which we just built, and instead of this, what if I want my interface to look like something like this? Okay, so text boxes should be one below the other, buttons should be one below the other, like this. Okay, so using the interface object, I can't do it. So I have to use something called blocks. Okay, so let's build that one by one. I'm here, and let me just comment out the previous code, and let's start building this one by one. The very first thing we are going to do is we are going to just do this. Okay, now let me put this side by side so we can see it. Okay, so now what we are doing is, first we are doing this gr block, which you can consider this as a main container. You can't see it, but this is the container containing all the elements underneath. So this dashed line here, you can think this as a block. Now within the block, as we can see in this layout, mock layout, that we have a one single row. So that's why we have another component, which is again a layout component. You can't see it, it's just a container. So this one row, single row I have created, and this single row contains two columns, column 1, column 2. So under this row we have column 1 and another column 2. Okay, now within that column 1 we have two text boxes. So this is the same thing like here, but we are assigning it to variable. All right, and in column 2 we have two buttons. One is submit button, another is the clear button. And since I wanted to name them shout and shh, so this is the text I have provided here while creating the buttons. Okay, So basically translated this whole layout exactly in the code as similar. So from outside to inside. Now let's try to run this and see. First I'm going to save this. Let's go back to terminal and let's start. This is in hot reload mode. So Gradio gr run. Just running. Okay, I did not launch it, so let's launch. So app dot launch. Okay, and then I'm going to save it. Hey, what happened? So now it's giving me error. Basically, if you see, it's looking for app name demo. You remember the first time when we did, we named it a demo. So somehow in Gradio library, by default, it looks for app name demo. If it is not there, then it fails. And it fails in a hot reload mode. It's not able to reload it. But since we have named it as app, right, we need to tell Gradio that, okay, my app name is different. So how to do that? So let me just close this Gradio, and I will do demo name equal to app. Okay. Now let's go back, start to save it again. So this time it works. All right. So now let's go back to our browser and try to create a new tab and 127 to run it. Now you see this? This is the layout which we have created. So obviously when your screen size is smaller, then it tries to fit. So everything becomes a column for a smaller screen size. But if you go on larger one, then it maintains what we wanted in the first place. So 2 columns here and buttons are in second column. Yeah. And since we are creating ourselves manually, it doesn't give us the default color and all. And if I click anything, if I put anything, nothing happens. Why? Because we have not built the hooked it with a function. So let's do that next. So we already have a function shout. Okay. So what we want is when this button is clicked, I want this function to be called by Gradio. Okay. So the way to do it is not here. So come here. So button dot submit. I want when the button dot submit is click. Okay. Then what do I want? I want a function to be called. Which function? Shout. Okay. And when I'm calling, I need to provide the inputs and outputs to the function. Same thing. The way we did with the interface. So inputs equal to, in my case, instead of creating the object there, because already I have created, so I'm just going to pass it. Instead of typing, let me just copy it for quick this thing. Also, I have renamed this function as lsnr shout, and this is a convention that I follow just to distinguish that this function is a listener to an UI event, so I can distinguish with other function if you're building a complex app. It's just a matter of preference. If you don't want to do this, then don't do this. I generally prefix with listener for the functions. Similarly, I prefix tbox for text box, just so that if the code is it grows over time, then quickly I will know, okay, this is the UI element and this is a listener function very quickly. So that's why I do that. Okay. Oriented, what you're saying. Okay. So this is my submit button. Let's save it and try it. Did it reload? Let's see. It should have. So let's go here and try hello. Shout. See. So now this listener is being called by our button. Okay. Now let's try this clear button. Nothing happens. Why? Because obviously this clear button does nothing. Similarly, we have to build a listener for clear. Okay. So what we want, another function which clears the content of our elements. So I've defined a listener clear, which is just a function which will be called by our this clear button, and it returns blank, right? So it takes nothing. So when I click clear, it takes nothing, and then no input is sent to the function, but function returns a blank. That means in both of these fields they'll be blanked out. That's what it's doing. And this is the return type I have provided. So it's a good idea to use type hints. So import, no, so from typing import import, man, import tuple. Okay. So this is optional, but it's a good idea to provide because we are returning two values. So it becomes in Python lingo, it becomes a tuple is returned. I'm just specifying the return type here. I'm saving it, but we want to hook it up with this function. Okay. So just going to copy and paste again. Now, similar to submit button, this clear is calling this listener, sending no inputs because function clear listener clear doesn't require an input. It returns to output as a string. So output is these two text boxes. Okay. So save it and let's do hello. Hello, shout, and then clear. See, okay. So now it's working. Gradio, actually the clearing the UI elements are so common that we do not actually have to do this. It provides a shortcut. So whatever we have built, this code is already built into Gradio. So it provides basically what I can do is, instead of this, I will just comment it out and I can do gr dot. It provides a clear button objects. Okay. And you have to provide what elements you want to clear. So these two text boxes I want to clear. All right, this one, and then I do not need this, and I do not need this. So in order to implement clear function, I have to just create this clear button. So let's save it. So now you see by default it becomes clear, but if I want to change the value, I can change it. It has got a value argument. So if I give it as what I wanted, it will change. So it changes, and the same function. So hello, shout, clear. Okay. So only thing is I do not have to write this code. Now one question one might ask, how do I know about this? Again, you have to go to the documentation, and before you are building, you're trying to build any component, trying to do anything, just look at the component documentation which I showed earlier, and most likely you will so just go to docs, click interface, and here. So, and you can search here as well. For example, if I just search clear, see the first thing which comes as a clear button. Just try to look through the documentation and do a Google search. In Stack Overflow, you'll get a lot of people suggesting like what you should be doing. So before building anything, good idea to look here. That is should already been built, so we do not have to implement it. Okay. Now, so we are done with this. Now, one more thing I want to show is launch takes a parameter called share. So by default is false. If I make it true, then I save it, and because I'm changing this launch call, so hot reload doesn't work. So I have to restart. No other option but to restart. Okay, and then I can simply restart. Now you'll see a difference. Okay, yeah. So previously it was only giving us this local link to run the application. Now it's giving a public URL, and if you look at it, actually it is on the net. So on Gradio servers, it's this link points to a Gradio live location, and anybody who has this list link, he can access my application and use it. So best use case is if you're working with users who are located in different country or different location, you're not co-located, and you want to check with users whether whatever you have built is good enough, or you want to take feedback. This helps a lot. So you just create a public link and you share with them, and they will be able to play with your application. And it says that it will be only active for 72 hours, but for quick prototyping, this is good enough, right? So if I just copy this, and if I go here, okay, and again, let me, instead of this local, it will be slow because it's running on actually on internet, on the net. So you'll see that it's a bit slower in response. Yeah. Okay. Now, one important thing which I mentioned at the very beginning of Gradio intro is, from the onset, it looks like this whole application is hosted at this location, but that's not the case actually. That's not the case. Why I say this? So if in my function, let's say shout function, if I put a print statement here, and I say, let's say shouting, yeah, and save it. Okay, and let's go back to our terminal here, and then let's try this again. Say hello and shout. Okay, now you see it is printed here in my terminal. That means the function itself is running on my box. The only thing is shared is the UI, and that's the cool part actually. So I do not have to, in order to experiment and work with my stakeholder or users, I do not have to deploy this application on cloud, the total deployment, right? I can keep running the application locally. I can just share a public link for the UI so that they can access. Still the application will be running on my machine, right? That's pretty cool, I guess. Okay, so now we know most of it, the basic concepts, but before we end, obviously we can notice that the interface looks very bland because we have built ourselves manually rather than using the interface objects. So there are no colors to these buttons, or there's no styling, right? So it's very easy to change that. And there are two ways. One way is to use Gradio themes. So come to this gr blocks, right? And it has a property called theme. And then here you gr dot themes, and if you do dot, then it provides you some inbuilt themes which comes installed with Gradio. So let's try this citrus theme, and it's a class, so just create it and save. You see, so now the whole look and feel changed. Similarly, you can try something else. There's another theme called soft. Do soft. So now the look and feel changes, and the font and everything is different. Okay, so how do we know what are the themes available and how to use it? Again, go to documentation. So go in document, you can go to docs, right? And at the bottom they have guides. So you can just on this page, if you search theme, right? So there's somewhere they have a theming guide. Where is it? It's here. So theming guide, if you go, now here all the details are provided. What are the themes, and if you want to modify even the themes, you can modify. You can create your custom themes, you know, depending upon your requirements. So everything is possible. So everything is available here. Okay, now if this doesn't work for you for some reason and you want total 100% control on how the elements are rendered and displayed, right, then it's also possible, because ultimately what Gradio is doing is it's rendering everything as HTML and CSS, using HTML CSS in browser like any other front-end application. It's no different. So if you know a bit of CSS and if you're good at it, then it's possible to change every behavior of any component using CSS. So I'll just quickly show one example of it. So why the hell you're not refreshing? Refresh. Okay. All right. So we are back to our original version. So let's say I want to change this button to orange color, or any color for my liking. So what I can do is I can create a simple CSS, okay, and target this button shout. So in CSS, this hash means, and this name is, so this is the ID of that element I want to target. So submit button where I've created here, right? So there is a property called elim ID, and this is my elim ID, okay? And what I'm saying, basically this any element that has ID equal to this, change the background color to orange, okay? So it will not work because I have to tell Gradio to use it. So it has a CSS property, and I can say CSS. So basically I am supplying this whole thing to blocks. So now it becomes orange color. I can change. It's not only background color. So whatever all the CSS property of this button element can be changed. Now let me add. So like I go here, I hover, right? So it changes. So if I want to add the hover effect here, so again, I can simply go to my CSS and add the hover. So button shout, again ID, hover, and background becomes yellow. So save it. See, now the hover effect is added. Okay, so anything you can change, and I'm putting this CSS as a string here. It's possible to save this CSS in a file, .css of your liking, and then instead of CSS, what you can do is you can provide CSS paths. Okay, so you can give the path of the file, and blocks are going to read that file and apply your CSS. All right. So that's about the styling. You can change, basically you can change anything you like. Now, last thing which I want to mention before we end is so as a fun exercise, what you can attempt if you want is to build an interface like this. Is a simple calculator you can build, right? So it will have two fields. So this won't be text box, but these will be number elements. Okay. So two number elements as an input, and there are 4 buttons laid out as rows with plus, minus, multiplication and division as operations, and then 1 button to calculate. Once you provide 2 numbers, press the operation and then you calculate, and here it will be displayed in markdown. Let's say heading 1, a big text output will be displayed here, and this is the layout, right? So this is the block. It has 1 row, it has 2 columns. Now this column is simple, it will have only one element called markdown, gr.markdown, and this column will have 2 rows. One row is this, another row is this, and third is, it's not put in a row because by default in column layout, if you put element, it goes down. So single element will anyway be stacked down, because in these cases you have multiple, so you put a row side by side, here row 3 again side by side. So maybe you can try to build it and create a public link and share in the comments, and let's check how it looks. So that's about it regarding Gradio. We don't need to know much more right now for building our stock analyst application. So that's the subject of next video. So now we have all the required knowledge and component to build the application, and that's exactly we'll be doing in next video. So till then, bye, see you there.